Hello and welcome to Spectrum News at 4. I am Rachel David White, coming to you live from the beautiful hills of Ibiako Run. Let's take a look at the headlines. President Buhari says nobody will be allowed to destabilize Nigeria. APC fixes presidential nomination forum for 100 million naira. Plus, Russia gives new deadline to Ukrainian troops in Mariupol. Details of these stories and more in a moment. We begin a report that President Muhammadu Buhari has urged Nigerians to persist and resist agents bent on causing breakdown of law and order in the country, and assure that no individual or group will be allowed to destabilize Nigeria. Buhari made the statement at the iftar dinner with state governors, ministers, and heads of government agencies, expressed the confidence that, in spite of the current security challenges in the country will succeed. On the forthcoming general elections, he affirmed that being a beneficiary of free, fair, and credible elections, the introduction of technology and a permanent voter's card will make it impossible for anyone to claim millions of votes again in the country. Away from that presidency and the office of a secretary to the government of a federation has passed the buck over the refusal of ministers, ambassadors, and aides to the president to resign ahead of the governorship and presidential primaries of the All Progressives Congress, which commence on May 25th. This is just as the Minister of Labor and Employment, Senator Chris Ngige, has declared his intention to contest the presidential election. Reports say Secretary to the State Government of the Federation, Bas Mustafa, ought to have issued a circular stating a deadline on when appointees of the president should resign. Meanwhile, President Buhari has approved the commission of ongoing construction of the Owerri-Olu and Owerri-Okigwe roads upon completion next month. This was disclosed by the Imo State Governor, Hope Uzodinma, after a courtesy visit to the president at the villa for a progress report on the ongoing road construction, the Olu Road, and expanded width for the Owerri-Okigwe Road as approved by the president. Away from that, Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo has commended the move by the International Criminal Court (ICC) to reform its system as part of efforts to mend relations with African countries. Osinbajo stated this when he received the prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, Karim Khan, who was on a courtesy visit to the presidential villa in Abuja. He said the proposal to reform the international justice system would reassure African countries that there is room for negotiations and that ICC is not just out to witch hunt any individual or organization. The vice president stressed the need to create a system that builds relationship and credibility among member states. Elsewhere, Minister Niger Delta Affairs Godswill Akpabio has reiterated the commitment of the federal government to providing healthcare services to ameliorate the challenges faced by the Niger Delta people in accessing facilities in their communities. The minister, who was represented by Deputy Director, Housing and Urban Development Ndekwe Upai, made the pledge at the inauguration and handing over a block of health center at Edemiramishit in Onna local government area of Akwa Ibom State. He mentioned that rural residents often encounter barriers to health care that limit their ability to obtain the care they need, noting that for rural residents to have sufficient access, necessary and appropriate health services must be available and obtainable in a timely manner. Meanwhile, Minister of Labor and Employment Chris Ngige has formally declared his intention to contest for the position of President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Ngige unveiled his presidential ambition before a crowd at St. Mary's Catholic Church, Alo Idemili, South Local Government Area of Anambra State. Addressing the crowd comprising APC faithful and other supporters, the former Anambra State Governor said having served 40 years in the public service, he was fully equipped as an administrator with huge wealth of experience, capacity and energy, as well as the heart to accommodate the differences among Nigerians. Elsewhere, Nigeria Air Force has constituted a panel to probe the training aircraft that crashed yesterday. The board was set up to determine the main cause of the crash. In a statement today by the Director of Public Relations and Information, Air Commodore Edward Gapquet, said the Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Oladayo Amao, promised to ensure a painstaking investigation into the incident. He quoted Amao to have stated this when he visited Kaduna early today to commiserate with families, friends and colleagues of the two pilots, Flight Lieutenant Abubakar Alkali and Flight Lieutenant Elijah Karatu, who lost their lives in a tragic accident. To politics now, where the All Progressives Congress APC has fixed 100 million naira for its presidential nomination and expression of interest forms. APC National Publicity Secretary Felix Morgan disclosed this while addressing journalists in Abuja today. Meanwhile, the National Executive Council NEC of the APC transferred its powers to the National Working Committee (NWC). In a related development, All Progressives Congress will choose its presidential candidate through an indirect primary election. The decision was reached at the party's 11th National Executive Committee meeting holding at the Transcorp Hotel in Abuja. Also, President Muhammadu Buhari and other leaders of the party have transmitted their powers to the National Working Committee of the APC to make decisions for a period of 90 days. Among those who will be contesting the APC presidential primary are Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, former Lagos Governor Bola Tinubu, the Minister of Transportation Rotimi Amechi, Ebonyi State Governor Dave Umahi, and Governor Yahaya Bello of Kogi State. Away from that, a regional stakeholders workshop on the operationalization and institutionalization of the network of West African women in conflict prevention and mediation, FEMWISE, West Africa, has kickstarted today in Lagos. The three-day workshop is expected to explore strategic advocacy tools, capacity building, and networking that will enable the implementation of the regional commitment for women's inclusion in conflict prevention and peacemaking processes at all levels. Reports say the workshop will also review and validate relevant documents, including a draft statute that defines the mandate, functions, and strategic engagement of a FEMWISE West Africa, a draft standard operating procedures and knowledge management framework, among others. Meanwhile, the workshop will afford FEMWISE West Africa Steering Committee members the opportunity to effectively operationalize the objectives of its network in line with the AU Agenda 2063, the United Nations Security Council Resolution on Women, Peace and Security and Global Sustainability Development Goals, SDGs. Recall that in 2017, FEMWISE Africa was established by the African Union Assembly of Heads of State within the context of the African Peace and Security Architecture, APSA, as a subsidiary mechanism of the AU panel of the WISE. The strength to the more role of women in conflict prevention and mediation, as well as peacemaking, post-conflict reconstruction and development efforts, while encouraging the regional economic communities to establish same structure. In education, National Examinations Council (NECO) has rescheduled the 2022 National Common Entrance Examination (NCEE) into Federal Unity Colleges from April 23rd to May 7th, 2022. Head of Information and Public Relations Division at NECO, Aziz Sani, disclosed this in a statement in Abuja. The council explained that the examination was rescheduled to give states with low registration of candidates the opportunity to register their candidate for the examination. NECO therefore advised candidates, parents, guardians, and relevant stakeholders to take note of a new date for the examination Download the new examination timetable from the Council's website at www.naco.gov.ng. Meanwhile, Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) will meet with the nation's security community under the auspices of Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security (ICCES). INEC outgoing Resident Electoral Commissioner Mike Igini says security is a big issue ahead of the 2023 general elections. Recall that INEC has been on the receiving end during elections period. To security now, where bandits have threatened to kill more people, especially women, if their demands for a 20 million naira ransom are not met. Say Community Monarch in a statement said the bandits who invaded the community, killed 2 residents and abducted 26 persons, have threatened to cause more havoc if their demands are not met. Confirming the incident, Chief of Agwan Bolo's community, Gideon Gani, called security agents and the government to come to their rescue. Meanwhile, the State Police Command spokesman, Mohammed Jalige, who confirmed the incident, said the police was on top of the situation. Back here, residents within Rio Metropolis have decried the state of major roads that have been destroyed by erosion within the state. Speaking with Spectrum Television, the people called on the state government to fix the roads in order to make life easier for all citizens. Our correspondent has the report.
Rectangular ways need to be evacuated to make way for waters to flow through. Unfortunately, a lot of drainages have been blocked with people disposing sachet water nylons, PET bottles, and other materials that can't be decomposed into drainages, as well as erecting buildings on waterways. Since water has to find a passage, it eventually results in washing away roads and causing erosion on these roads. Although the Akwa Ibom State government would be commended for its efforts on infrastructure, several roads within the states can be seen washed off and broken. Among them are Ikpa Road, Atiamkpat, and others becoming immotorable as half of the road have been washed off by erosion. Citizens who spoke with Spectrum Television decried the state of these roads and the effect it has had on them.
Tetuguni yak ayari kunu fo wa ku kunu keremeko ira amaka isoko nyongere memara keke era gan kongoko wanyi ba en kongomi imi bo fene taiti.
Sometimes ago, like last year, I had some persons who were being robbed. Before now, this was like it was very deep where people need to go down and swipe up and all those stuff. When it's dark like that, you get hoodlums hanging around, looting people's bags. And there was also a time where we had to get and turn around this other Atiamkpat. It was also very stressful.
They also pleaded with the state governments to attend to this road speedily to make life easier and prevent further loss of lives and properties.
This is a major road that links to about 2 to 3 communities. We have Nduetongoku, we have Iba, and also we have Oran. And for instance, if this road is not fixed snappily, it's like this side of the state is being detached from the state actually.
Obviously, a lot needs to be done by the government to make this basic amenity accessible, as well as sensitization for the citizens to acknowledge the part they play heavily. Waterways need to be evacuated to make way for waters to flow through. Unfortunately, a lot of drainages have been blocked with people disposing sachet water nylons, PET bottles, and other materials that can't be decomposed into drainages, as well as erecting buildings on waterways. Since water has to find a passage, it eventually results in washing away roads and causing erosion on these roads. Although the Akwa Ibom State government would be commended for its efforts on infrastructure, several roads within the states can be seen washed off and broken. Among them are Ikpa Road, Atiamkpat, and others becoming immotorable as half of the road have been washed off by erosion. Citizens who spoke with Spectrum Television decried the state of these roads and the effect it has had on them.
Sometimes ago, like last year, I had some persons who were being robbed. Before now, this was like it was very deep where people need to go down and swipe up and all those stuff. When it's dark like that, you get hoodlums hanging around, looting people's bag. And there was also a time where we had to get and turn around this other Hatian part. It was also very stressful.
They also pleaded with the state governments to attend to this road speedily to make life easier and prevent further loss of lives and properties.
This is a major road that links to about 2 to 3 communities. We have Nduetongoku, we have Iba, and also we have Oran. And for instance, if this road is not fixed snappily, it's like this side of the state is being detached from the state actually.
Obviously, a lot needs to be done by the government to make this basic amenity accessible, as well as sensitization for the citizens to acknowledge the part they play in this crisis. Edidion Martin, reporting for Spectrum Television.